I would like to call the meeting of the Planning Commission to order. Matt, would you please take roll?
Commissioner Kipp.
Present.
Commissioner Oakes.
Present.
Commissioner Siegfried.
Present.
Commissioner Kelly.
Present. Next on the agenda is approval of the minutes from the January 14 regular meeting. Is there any discussion on the minutes? If not, is there a motion to approve?
I move to approve.
I will second it. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. Next on the agenda are public hearings. There are no public hearings. And then old business, there are no old business. I don't think I said that right. Anyway, okay, then next on the agenda is new business. We are considering a final plat for Barker's Alps School Addition submitted by the Stillwater Area Public Schools, Independent School District 834. Planning consultant Dan, please present the details of this application.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, Planning Commission members. The applications that are before you are the next step in the process for the new elementary school. You'll recall, which was approved back in November of last year, the city considered an annexation petition, a comprehensive plan amendment, a zoning map amendment, and then specific to development of the site, conditional use permit, and 2 variances. The current application is for a final plat, and with that goes a development contract. This is really a nuts and bolts technical dot the I's, cross the T's type action. Most cities don't even have these come before the Planning Commission, and when they get to council, they're typically a consent agenda item. There's not to be really much discussion about it because is everything in order and ready to move forward with the project. So just to review quickly, we're talking about the 10-acre property located south of 5th Avenue North, adjacent to Barker's Alps Park, surrounded by the adjacent Anderson property to the west, the state property and fire department to the north side of the property. The school will obviously integrate with Barker's Alps Park as part of the site development. What the final plat is really the detailed drawing of how the property is being subdivided. So it establishes the boundaries of the property down to 1/100th of a foot, and then provides for dedication of right-of-way to Washington County for 5th Avenue North, provides for dedication of the drainage and utility easements at the perimeter. As part of this, the developer is also required to extend utilities to the property and through the property to provide future connection to the Bay Haven development. And they'll also be required to make dedication to the city for park purposes. That would be in cash form versus land dedication for this application. The developers also, in this case the school district, required to enter into a development contract with the city. This basically requires them to perform the public improvements that are included as part of their project approvals that were given in November last year. They're required to put up a financial security to ensure that those are completed in a timely manner. And then the city, through administrating the contract, both from city staff as well as the consulting engineer, will provide inspection and observation of the construction as it proceeds through the project. There are a number of fees and charges that the developer pays to the city, including those for utility area charges, and those are set forth in the contract as well. Specific to the approvals from November are 4 easement agreements that are necessary for the project. That includes the school district's use of Barker's Alps Park, both for off-street parking as well as the use of the park facilities itself. Reciprocal easement for the shared use of the off-street parking areas, both on the school property and on Barker's Alps Park. The emergency access drive that is around the back side of the project needs to have an access easement over it so that the fire department can access that at all times. And then there's stormwater maintenance agreements necessary to maintain stormwater basins on the property as well as other areas of the landscaping, etc. So the site plan has been being worked on primarily with the city engineer with regards to construction plans and some details. There are a number of changes being made to the landscape plan as recommended by city staff to diversify the materials within the site. Some minor changes to the lighting plan to lower the intensity of the light, make it a more natural warm color versus a true LED white. And then finalization of the construction plans for all the improvements. The Middle St. Croix Watershed Management Organization approval also is being reviewed in process. So with that, city staff is recommending approval of the final plat based on consistency with the approved preliminary plat and the other zoning approvals from November. The final plat does comply with the subdivision ordinance. The development contract, which was drafted by the city attorney's office, is to be approved in form, and then the final numbers entered prior to consideration by the city council. Our recommendation is subject to the 18 stipulations listed in our report to the Planning Commission.
All right, thank you. At this time, I would like to entertain discussion or questions from the Planning Commission on the final plat. Does anyone have any questions for the school district or Dan?
So why is it coming to the planning commission if we were not, approving a variance easement?
Madam Chair.
All that?
That's because the Bayport subdivision ordinance has in the processing of a final plat that it still goes to the Planning Commission. So we
Okay.
essentially have to follow the procedure set forth by the ordinance.
Okay, so we're not, it's not a variance or anything like that. It's just part of this
Correct.
process for this situation. Okay.
Really just a technical analysis by the engineer and planning and other city staff as to whether the final plat complies with the conditions of preliminary plat approval and requirements for final plat.
And then the 18 items that were talked about back in November, all of those were addressed. I know one was parking, handicap access, all of that. That's all been addressed with the city and
Madam Chair.
the school.
Yes, it has been. So
Okay.
there were actually 30-some conditions back in November.
Okay.
Now we're down to 18, and a lot of those are mainly routine items that we just list as par for the course so that then they get incorporated into the development contract for performance reasons.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay. I move to recommend to the city council to approve a final plat for Barker's Alps School Edition submitted by the Stillwater Public Schools, Independent School District 834, subject to the findings of fact and conditions of approval recommended by staff. Do I have a second?
I second that motion.
All those in favor, say aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion carries. All right. Next on the agenda is the open forum. The open forum is a portion of the meeting for the public to ask questions or comment on subjects related to land use that are not part of the meeting agenda. Anyone wishing to comment shall state their name and street address for the record. Do we have anybody who wants to make a comment?
Sidewalks on Fifth Avenue.
Sorry,
Oh,
you have to come up to the podium, so please.
Well, it's Bill Seth, 4283 McDonald Drive, Stillwater. It's happy. I'm just want to, I'm from the St. Croix United Church, where we sold the land to the school, and it's kind of fun for us to see this whole thing proceed. And it's, I have a question though that I thought the Planning Commission should look at, or someone should look at, is if you look at this plot of the final plat, it shows prairie. It shows prairie around the periphery and into the trees, and basically prairie isn't really designed for forest, really. It's a question that I've had, and I don't know what the plan is for prairie. I've planted some prairies myself, and prairies are basically grasses and forbs, and not a lot of trees. It's pretty much generally open field areas, and so that it shows on the plat a whole lot of prairie around the edges and even into the forest. So I just kind of don't understand that, and would just ask the Planning Commission to look at that.
My understanding from the last meeting was you guys were gonna the school district and the city were gonna consult with the U of M horticulture, like the people who know about plants and what is good as that.
And you were gonna use native
Native.
stuff, and it was changing the look of the landscape, I thought, or having it reviewed. Has that been done, or are you working on that still with?
Hello, my name is Greg Bukal. I'm the civil engineer for the project. I'm not the landscape architect, so I'll try to answer your question. But yes, they did consult, I believe, with the University of Minnesota. That memo or email that was sent around, we've been working closely with city staff too to work through those issues. So I believe they're being addressed.
Okay.
What, do you have any input on that, Matt?
Madam Commissioner, yeah, we will definitely work with the school district and all the consultants on to make sure that the property is properly located for prairie restoration. We're kind of doing the same thing in Barker's Alps currently, where we're trying to turn it back to some oak savanna. So if that's what has to get incorporated into the tree area potentially, that's always a possibility too. So.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
So the area shown in green would be all the area that needs to be restored after grading of the site. So that's where they're showing planting prairie grasses, et cetera.
All right, well, it seems like it's in hand to keep talking and making the decisions that are supportive of what we all want, which is kind of native plants and.
And Madam Chair, in anticipation of another question that may come from the audience, so it was discussed in part of the conditional use permit approval sidewalk along Fifth Avenue North. The city's intent is to pursue a Safe Routes to School project moving forward so that we can receive state money for that effort and construct the sidewalk connection to the school, separate from the school project itself.
Are you looking at putting sidewalks on Second Avenue as well, which is where the walking path to Barker's Alps connects? There's no sidewalks there.
Madam Commissioner, I can answer that one. At this time, there are currently no plans for sidewalks there. We would probably look at that when a street project would be incorporated there. I did talk to a couple of residents there who indicated that that they didn't think sidewalks were needed there.
So some of it may depend on once there's the actual walking traffic going to and from the school, what is needed.
Yeah, I think once we learn where people tend to go and different stuff like that, right? A couple of those people can probably walk right across their backyards to the school potentially. How many people will access it on Second Street there where it enters the park? That'll be interesting to know. And how many actually go on Fifth Avenue. But yes, the city has submitted, as far as Fifth Avenue is concerned, we have submitted the grant application for Safe Routes to School. We should know in April, I believe. whether
Yeah,
we've
so
received that.
really, anybody from right here who lives in this area, including myself and Aaron.
I'm close to
would-
Fifth now. I
Oh,
live
you
3
are,
blocks
so you
over.
might go. But everybody who lives right around here would go up Second Avenue. So, but that's gonna be seasonal and I don't know, but.
Yep.
So it's not in the works for anything, but, I mean, you have it as like, this is gonna be, once it gets going, we're watching it, or what, for safety and for,
Madam Commissioner, the intent is whether we get the Safe Routes to School project grant or not, Fifth Avenue would definitely be a priority
right,
immediately. As far as the other ones, I I think we would fall back on what the demand is for those areas and what we're seeing as far as participation and walking and stuff like that. Currently, I believe we have 40, what do you think, Mark? Is it 40 students who walk to school? Was that the number?
Oh, right.
Somewhere in there. So whether that increases or decreases depending on, you know, where the school is located, it will be interesting to know.
Thank you, Dan. I just want to give anyone else in the audience, if you want to come up and ask a question, please state your name and street address for the record, please.
Mark Pelletier, we own property at 817 Fifth Avenue. And who's gonna pay for the sidewalk? Are we gonna be assessed? Who's gonna maintain it?
Yeah, Mark, I can answer those questions. So obviously with the Safe Routes to School grant, the intent would be to have the entire construction amount paid for by state money. And then any of the design costs like that would be paid for by the city, essentially the taxpayer, but no assessments at this point are being considered. As far as maintenance, technically any sidewalk in front of a property is the property owner is required to maintain it, as far as snow shoveling, things like that.
Okay, and so when the county comes by 3 times, we're gonna have to maintain it 3 times?
That's probably open to discussion, and the city council.
Because
can
I
take that
know
up.
we walk here and there's many sidewalks that are not shoveled.
I agree
ever.
with you. Yep.
I will tell you, being on the corner right by the school, we have to shovel 2 to 3 times each snowfall because of
Yep.
the snowplow coming past, so I'm very
So how many,
familiar with
I
your.
guess my question is, how many times are we gonna have to shovel it? If it's our responsibility? If we do it before the county comes or after their first pass, and they come by 2 more times, we have to shovel it 2 more times?
I think you are going to have to decide that for yourself. I will tell you that we shovel the sidewalk part that's on our property.
That's fine. How many times you said you do it 3 times?
2 or 3.
2 or 3, depending on
Okay,
the.
all right.
Sometimes we wait till the second pass. We have to do it,
Third
but
pass.
I
No,
know what you're.
We just want to figure it out.
Yeah. Well, once
I know
the
we've talked to
sidewalk's
Matt,
in place,
we've talked to Matt, and
One thing, Mark, with the one on Fifth Avenue, I think we will try or do our best to keep it as far off of Fifth Avenue as possible, so that when the county is coming through, that it's farther back, so that there's more snow storage in that median area.
yeah, we talked as 5 feet.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, no, we're just wondering how.
yeah.
I mean, if we don't do it 3 times, are we gonna get fined for that, or,
I doubt it.
pardon?
I doubt it.
Okay. All right.
Are there any other questions or comments on any subjects related to land use that are not part of this meeting? Hi, state your name and address, please.
Kerry Price, 923 Second Avenue. I'm at the end of Second Avenue, right by the park. Couple things I want to bring up. The Second Avenue, that was the sidewalk talk. There is drainage that they put in when they redid the road because of on the north and the south side of the road, for sidewalks, that really wouldn't be very good for putting a sidewalk in because of the drainage ditches. The one thing that I want to bring up too is runoff from, I know I've seen you walk through
Many
the park.
times, yeah.
A lot of people that I've talked to have really been taken back with what they've been doing out in the park. It's just drastic tree cutting down up in the park. A lot of the stuff is evasive. I understand that to take that down is good. I wish they would take all the cottonwoods down and get rid of all that fuzz and stuff. But I understand, they took down a lot of pine trees that were up there that were planted. My big concern is that where does the taking of the park, and the park was set aside to stay the way it was back in 1985. When the school goes in, what's stopping them from, well, we need this, we need that, to make the school, or, for the school purposes, making the park smaller and smaller?
Well, the school is being built on private land.
I understand that, but
So, I would think, and Matt or Dan can correct me, but that any change they want to make to the park would have to come through the planning commission and the city council.
Right.
Because it would be wanting to make a change on city land.
But, once the school's built there and it's adjacent to the park, what's the best, route of, they're gonna want to do something, and that's a park. The next thing it'll be, hey, let's put in a hockey rink or something, because that one won't be used, and I just have a real concern about the park. Because I grew up in Bayport, I live there. Yeah, it's in my backyard, so I have a vested interest. But you get a lot of people that live in Bayport that walk by, and what are they doing to our park? So.
Matt, could you, am not familiar with the tree work there that has happened or is happening in the park. Could you
Yeah, Madam
address
Commissioner.
that?
Those concerns were definitely brought up the last couple of city council meetings, so attending those would definitely be, if you want to stay informed. But as far as what they're doing to the current park, it's essentially turning it back to Oak Savannah, what it was at one time, right? So that includes removal of buckthorn, a significant amount of removal of buckthorn, removal of non-native species, and then, yes, removal of pine trees. Then when they come back the next year, or this spring, or this summer, they will be seeding for native grasses, which will definitely help with infiltration in there rather than having it run off. Buckthorn is notorious for killing just about everything under the canopy and actually causing erosion problems. So we have an actual local landscape contractor who does this work significantly around the metro area. He actually lives up by the park on Fifth Avenue, Fifth Street, one of those two. So he's very invested in this project. So.
And this came about, all this stuff was because you got a grant, or because you went to, like, who decided we're doing this?
Yeah, the possibility for grant work with that was related to, I believe, buckthorn removal specifically, allowed us to do this process.
And all of these detail, like the pine trees, whatever, had to get approved by.
All of that was in the detailed plan that was approved by the city council. Yep.
But not like a state park and rec board. You know what I mean? Like somebody besides the city, I mean, the city council can say, take down all these trees, but
Sure.
Was it like, okay, these are invasive, we have to take those from like a horticulture person, I guess is what I'm saying?
Yeah, the landscape architect here, or not architect, but the landscape person helped us with it, and so did who was instrumental in it. Washington County has done this in a couple of spots, down in Cottage Grove, in its Ravine National Park, or Ravine Park down there, something like that. So we definitely worked with them on what we wanted to include in the proposal.
And then what is the end result on like what he was talking about? How do we as a city protect what is there now from the school coming in and, oh, we need another baseball field?
Yeah, Madam Commissioner, that was discussed in detail at quite a few meetings. Essentially, any change in use, any change or proposal from the school would have to come back to the planning commission and the city council for approval.
So the one baseball field has been built up, and that's by St. Croix Prep. They got a grant, and the city council agreed to let them like make it nicer and whatever fences and
Yeah, I wasn't just saying, I was just using baseball stuff. Like
yeah. No,
whatever
I know,
is
but that's it's already happened in the past. That
I didn't want to, I just wanted to come back up and just say, it's kind of two different subjects. The one subject is the park, cutting down the trees, that's one thing. But the question that I just had to bring up because of the, it's very shocking when you go up there. And I give you, that is exactly what it needed, is a good cleanup, but it's very drastic, even with the pine trees coming down. But the thing that I wanted to press was, it's pretty hard to say no once everything gets rolling that, okay, well, we want to put a hockey rink in. Well, sure, the school's right there, so then it's pretty hard to say no, so.
But we still have the ability to say no, and that's why we're here for the checks and balances. And
Right, yep. But it just, when this, I actually, this was part of a meeting that I went to when I was in grade school right across the street in '85, that when I watched this all happen, that it was set aside to be a park. And now it's going through the rules, and it's going to become, we have no say because it is in private, it is owned by they bought the land next to it. But they could also, the city could have also said, we're not going to allow you to have what they're doing, approving the deviation of letting them have the parking lot too. But, it's the best. Would we want the school in the park? No. It's so, don't really have much to say when they bought it from a private seller. But and it looks like you're on the same page too. It's just, it's just, I'd rather give them as little as they need.
Madam Chair, it's quite simple. The property is the city's property. The city has the right to decide what happens on that property. Before this got anywhere, there was negotiation between the city and the school district as to the memorandum of understanding as to the extent the city was willing to share use of Barker's Alps Park. Nothing is going to happen on the city's property unless the city council decides as such. If they do proceed to make other improvements, that is when it would need to come back through the Planning Commission and City Council. It would be no different than, for example, the school district going to Commissioner Kelly and saying, your house is on Fifth Avenue, we're going to build a hockey rink on your lot. It's a private piece of property. City has absolute right to say no.
But he's just saying, how do we stop it from snowballing into their taking over the whole
by
park?
saying no.
That's not
saying
an
no.
issue
Yeah.
for discussion this evening, and it's not
Right.
really an issue for the Planning Commission.
It's when it
It's
comes
a
up
city
again.
council issue in the future, and it's not on the table now because the council made very clear the extent to which they were willing to share access to Barker's Alps Park.
I think it's being a citizen and paying attention and coming and making your voice heard when
Like I
things
have
come
been
up.
doing.
Yes.
Absolutely.
You bet. And I can be drowned out by somebody, yes, you're correct. I'm just voicing my,
Yeah.
which.
Yeah. Anyone else have any questions or comments on subjects related to land use? Okay, then that concludes the business on tonight's agenda. Do I hear a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I motion to adjourn the meeting.
I second the motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.